Good morning. Notice of the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on February 14th, 2025. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Opens Meeting Act is available for inspection on OPPD.com and in this meeting room. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. Our agenda for today's meeting is as follows. We'll conduct a closed session this morning to discuss two topics, personnel matters and regulatory compliance item. We will conclude this morning's closed session no later than 9:50 a.m. in order to open the WebEx meeting to allow the public and OPPD staff to join. We'll begin public session at approximately 10 a.m. and receive reports from each committee. Director Spurgeon, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
We do. I move that the board go into closed session at this time, 9:03 a.m. to discuss two topics. One, personnel matters, and two, regulatory compliance items. With respect to personnel matters, a closed session is necessary for prevention of needless injury to the reputation of an individual, and such individual has not requested a public meeting. With respect to the regulatory compliance item, a closed session is necessary because the discussion involves legal advice and strategy that is protected by the attorney-client privilege and attorney work product doctrine. So this requires a second.
Second.
Director Bogner?
Absent.
Director Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Director Ford?
Yes.
Director Howard? Yes. Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Moody?
Yes.
Director Spurgeon?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes.
The motion to go into closed session is passed. This closed session will be limited to two topics, personnel matters and a regulatory compliance item. No votes or other board action will be taken. All right, welcome back. A motion and second is required to reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Director Bogner? Absent. Director Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Director Ford?
Yes.
Director Howard? Yes. Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Moody?
Yes.
Director Spurgeon?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes.
The motion to come out of closed session at 10:12 a.m. is carried. This closed session was limited to discussion regarding two topics, personnel matters and a regulatory compliance item. No vote or other board action was taken. Notice the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on February 14th, 2025. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder, those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. We will take public comments at the end of today's meeting, as well as at the board meeting on February 20th, 2025, which will be conducted in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center, and it will begin at 5 p.m. The public may attend in person or remotely via WebEx by going to OPPD.com. Joining me today in person are my fellow board members, Mike Kavanaugh, Sarah Howard, John Hudson, Craig Moody, Mary Spurgeon, and Eric Williams. Amanda Bogner is absent. She let us know in advance that she would not be able to attend today. We also have members of our executive leadership team, Steve Bruckner, our general counsel, with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm and OPPD staff. Additionally, we currently have 31 attendees in this meeting, consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. Today, we will hear the following committee reports. Director Spurgeon will report on governance, Director Moody on finance, Director Howard on customer and public engagement, and Director Williams on system management and nuclear oversight. CEO Fernandez will now give the safety briefing.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask,
Randy's back.
Randy, can you provide the safety briefing here for them? Physically here in the room, and I'll provide it.
Morning, I'll be covering the physical security portion of the safety brief this morning. In this building, if we have to evacuate, we use this door here and we exit through the building. We do have first aid supplies outside at the security desk as well as an AED. There's also fire suppression systems out there. So if anybody's please not feeling well, let us know. For those of you at home, hope you have first aid kits at home and let somebody know where you are in case you need any help or anything like that. With that, I'll turn it back over to President Javier.
Thank you, Randy. Quickly, just another reminder of how important psychological safety is at OPPD. It's anyone really at any level of the organization, whether you're an OPPD employee or a contractor. If you don't feel safe, you don't feel comfortable with the work that we're doing, you need to make sure that you have psychological safety to raise your hand and stop work, challenge the way we're doing things. That's a continuous improvement mentality, but also a safety mentality where that keeps us all safe. You have in front of you the 5 pillars of psychological safety, which are respect, healthy conflict, be willing and know how to have healthy conflict, welcome multiple perspectives, build a culture of trust, and have a culture of curiosity. With that, the safety focus for the month of February, personal protective equipment or PPE that we have all over the organization is warned to minimize exposure to hazard, not to completely eliminate them, but to minimize the exposure to hazards that could cause serious workplace injuries and illnesses. Oftentimes PPE is the last line of defense. And this is something that we remind all of our employees about. It's not your only line of defense, not just because you're wearing your hard hat or your gloves and you should consider yourself safe. There are many behaviors that come before that provide mitigation against those hazards. That PPE is oftentimes the last line of defense, having eye protection, gloves, hard hats, etc. February is also the Heart Health Month. It's the American Heart Month. It's a good opportunity for all of us to focus on our cardiovascular health, a good reminder as the year starts. And maybe you're still sticking to your New Year's resolutions. And if you're not, maybe this is a good opportunity to think about these again and go do your annual checkup and take a good look at your health, especially cardiovascular health. Pre-job briefs at OPPD it's a regulatory requirement that we have before you start any job. Have a pre-job briefing. What discuss with your coworkers? What is it that you're about to do? Situational awareness about the work environment you're about to work on. Something that's super important, and it's really human performance. Going back to the PPE, right? This is what comes before the PPE kicks in to protect our. That concludes my safety briefing.
Thank you, Director Spurgeon.
Thank you, Chair Core. The Governance Committee met on February 11th, and following a safety briefing, we ascertained that the slate was clean from last year's business, and so we moved on to annual committee charter review. Every one of the committees here, the set committees, which are finance, governance, customer and public relations, and systems management and nuclear oversight, at their opening meeting reviewed their charters to remind themselves of how things are structured and operating, and of the duties and responsibilities. So we did that for our own governance charter. Then we reviewed the board work plan and our own committee's planning calendar as well. One of the pieces of business that came before us was regarding the charter review. Only one charter came to the governance committee with a request and a recommendation for change in the charter, and that was the Systems Management and Nuclear Oversight Committee. So at this point, I want to invite Vice President Scott Focht to tell us more about that.
Great. Thank you, and good morning. It is always an interesting part of housekeeping at the beginning of every year the new committees getting together and have an opportunity to review their charters. It's a great opportunity to remind everyone of those, how things are structured and operating, the duties and responsibilities and the expectations of annual. And as Director Spurgeon highlighted, all of the four standing committees have reviewed them. One committee hasn't met yet, which is the risk committee, and that will be meeting in March, and the intention will be to add that to the agenda then. That is a new charter. I would not anticipate any changes. When we take a look at the System Management Nuclear Oversight Committee, I should actually acknowledge too, the reason this is brought forward through governance is because it's a part of the charter committees. When you took a look at only one of the charters changing, there was some debate as to whether or not it should be briefed through Systems Management Nuclear Oversight or through governance, but this really is a part of effective governance. So it came through on this committee. But I will turn it over at some point to Director Williams if you wanted to have any comment around the changes that were proposed. If we could go to those changes, the red line, Aaron, if you have those. And providing some background while she's pulling those up, under the duties and responsibilities section, the only thing that's changing really is under nuclear decommissioning and oversight. Our leadership over there, specifically Tim Ewing and Troy Vi, had an opportunity to review. And they acknowledged that such progress has been made in terms of decommissioning of the plant, that it really was time to make some changes to what the statement of oversight would need to look like moving forward. And that's really what this is intended to do. Number 7 here begins highlighting the fact that one of the changes is the NRC, the committee would review the summary and inspection reports of these groups. The first one being the NRC. And they wanted to specify a little bit more about what the board should likely focus its attention on, which is severity level 3 or higher violations. The second proposal was to remove decommissioning oversight committee. Not that this isn't important, but ultimately it may have served its purpose, at least will have served its purpose towards the end of the year. They're expecting 1 or maybe 2 more meetings with the DOC. That being said, keeping the charter viable over a longer period of time, it made sense to remove it. Please know that the System Management Nuclear Oversight Committee will be invited to attend any or all of the DOC meetings, and the board itself will be made aware of those as well. So it does not change the invitation or the opportunity to be part of that. It just is no longer, after 2025 time horizon, really going to be a relevant bullet on here likely. And then the other language is really about clarification and coming up, kind of combining a few things ultimately to lead to statement 8 here. Which is the committee shall review the status of decommissioning funding, status of funding for managing irradiated fuel, and the financial assurance status report information as provided to the NRC by regulation. If you were to take a look at the detail that is in this NRC report, it is quite thorough. The board will have the information that it needs to really understand it, perhaps more than it wants, to provide the oversight function that it has. All of this is an intention to keep the oversight strong, to keep it focused, and to acknowledge where the decommissioning project is really in its overall maturity and accomplishment. So that was shared with the System Management Nuclear Oversight Committee, and in general, the committee members voiced levels of support for that to be considered for the board. Any questions about the proposed change or any comments, Director Williams, as chair of that committee?
Nope. Thanks for highlighting all of that. I guess the only thing that we really discussed in the systems committee was just verifying that the change in the language does not represent a decrease in oversight, but a shift in oversight based on the successful completion of the work that has already been accomplished at Fort Calhoun and looking forward to what we still need to accomplish to get to the ultimate completion of that. So, it is an appropriate level, as the systems committee discussed, an appropriate level of adjustment to the policy language and the reporting to the board, based on where we are and where we expect to be in the future. So thank you for highlighting that. But other than that, yeah, that was the only substantive change to the charter for this year.
I'd like to just comment, Director Williams and Director Howard and I had a tour of Fort Calhoun pretty soon. Well, it's been like 5 years ago now. Oh, what a change there is. So it's pretty phenomenal, the work that has been done, and having been a viewer of the the meetings, they'll discuss the work that's done and is it done well? Oh my goodness, it has been done so well. They are very particular. Picky is kind of like an insubstantial word to describe how particular they are. If there's an isotope that is not where it belongs, it's going to be tracked down and put where it belongs. So really terrific appreciation to all the people who have done that work. And to, as Javier has said before, to the board who, when it was being built, said, we need to put monies aside to make sure we have enough to decommission this development when its life is over. So great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those words, Director Spurgeon. We'll make sure those get forwarded on to everyone at Fort County.
I think that ends our the governance committee's report.
Great.
Thank you.
Director Howard?
The CP, the Customer and Public Engagement Committee met on February 10th. And we went over the advanced metering infrastructure program update and sort of our outreach to customers in that regard. And then we also had a legislative and regulatory update. And so for today, we're just going to talk about AMI and legislative updates. We went through our charter as well, but that was fine. Our charter was beautiful.
For the record.
The record. It was the best one ever. Tim, take it away.
Must have missed that part of the meeting.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Tim McRae, Vice President of Customer Service and Public Affairs. So I call a couple of colleagues to the front. I want to take a quick aside. You all know that Heat the Streets, our joint event with MUD, is coming up on March 1st. Really pleased and excited to announce that any one of you, or all of you actually, if you're not already in, could be the one to push us over the goal. We are $56 away from a $180,000 goal pre-committed before the event, which is tremendous. We're up about almost $45,000 from last year, and we've got 44 additional new sponsors over last year. So it's going to be a great event. If you're not already in, please join us.
Credit to the chair.
Team's done great work.
Just name recognition. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Matt Hardebeck, our Director of Customer Experience and Operations, to lead us through the AMI discussion.
Thank you. Advance the slide. Okay, so we're talking today about stakeholder and customer outreach around AMI, but a quick look at the agenda. We're going to talk
Matt.
about some program.
Your name or your title, just for the people who are watching.
Matt Hardebeck, the Director of Customer Experience and Operations. So Kate Thomas, the Corporate Marketing and Communications Director. Aaron Smith is in the back helping as well. He would usually give an AMI update. This is part of the quarterly update. So I'm going to cover some of that today, and then we're going to dive into a new topic. So we're going to talk a little bit about the approach that we're going to take in terms of engagement with our customers and key stakeholders. We're going to talk about some key components and then give you kind of an insight into what does 2025 look like. So let's move forward one slide. So looking back on 2024 and AMI as a program level, a lot of impressive figures and a lot of impressive information here. I can't understate how impressive and important this work is, but I do want to draw you to two numbers here that kind of stood out to me as a business owner of a couple of these systems that are going live. The first one, the requirements, top left-hand corner, over 2,000 of those. What do those even mean? Why are they important? Think about those as enhancements or an evolution of our current systems, moving our business forward. 2,000 of them, a lot. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is the very bottom center box, over 4,000 test cases. Again, why 4,000? Why does that matter? Well, that's us ensuring that we're getting it right. We asked for 2,000 or more changes to systems, internal systems. This is us validating that. There's a lot of people involved in this. The whole organization ponies around this. But I wanted to make sure that I highlighted a couple numbers here because I think they're so important. Now, before we transition on to talk about the topic that we are going to cover today in terms of customer and key stakeholder, I wanted to try to draw, and it's going to be difficult, to the complexity of that work. So me with an engineering background, I I love numbers, so I got to thinking about through that lens, we have over 1.6 million touch points with this work. Now, don't think about that in terms of a static relationship, right? This is not a put the plan in place and go execute. This is extremely dynamic. We have to have very thoughtful and tailored information for each one of our customers and our key stakeholders. Now, that plan and a lot of material you're going to see today was built on dozens of conversations with other utilities. We want to take what we've learned from those and apply them forward. So now let's move on to the next slide. It's always helpful to talk about where are we going? And I think there's two parts to this statement that I want to highlight. The first one is that first sentence. We know through our syndicated studies, our own internal benchmarking, our own personal relationships with other companies and entities, they're expecting a lot. Customers and stakeholders are expecting a lot, and we have an opportunity to deliver here. The second portion of this is the frictionless exchange. That's really important. We don't want this to be a really bad experience. Matter of fact, we went to a great level of detail to understand how we can do that in such a frictionless way. And then lastly, the exciting new products and services that we will provide to our customers. So really critical to continue to evolve. So getting into what does that really mean, I'll hand it over to Kate. She'll talk about some of the value.
No, thanks. Thanks, Matt. If we can go to the next slide. Just to ground everyone in what are we actually talking about? What's going to happen this year? I think three things that we should be excited about for this year. And it really our public, our media partners, all OPPD customers, and those who ultimately are involved in our pilot are going to see some really great things this year. First, in the fall, an improved outage map. Now that's been critical as we know even from last year's July storm, that the more detail that we can give, the better. And so this new outage map, which Matt will give us a short preview of in just a moment, it's going to give us more detail about cause, about an estimated restoration time, and especially those blue sky outages, and really just give people a better sense of where are we at in that process. So that's not only helpful for all OPPD customers, but it helps our media partners and the public amplify that correct information. So we're really excited for that coming in fall. And then we also will be introducing an improved customer platform. So when you go to My Account today, which we have a great many number of customers who use My Account, it's going to be a little bit easier to do some things yourself. It's not only going to be more mobile friendly, able to access information that you maybe hadn't been able to access before, but what I'm most excited about is that it's going to allow you to opt into the channels in which you wish to receive information from OPPD and about what, and specifically texting. And I think that's been something that we've wanted to really capture for a long time, and this is exciting. So, someone can opt into getting emails or not getting emails, or getting text messages or not getting text messages about their outage, and when it's happening. We know that is key to continuing to evolve in our customer experience and customer journey. And then finally, if you are one of those pilot participants in the fall, not only will you have that updated meter, but you have some expanded options within My Account. You'll be able to see some usage data real time, get a better sense of how and when am I using energy, and what does that tell me about my experience and how I can manage that. So we're excited because no matter where you fall on this spectrum, we'll see some improvements this year. All right, next slide, please. And yeah, there we go. There's a photo. We know that we need to take both a community and a customer approach to that. So here's what we mean, especially for our pilot participants. We'll have pilots across our service area, and I think that the board had a preview of some of those areas. And what we know is that every customer, we want it to be a consistent experience in terms of what the level of detail they get about this meter, how to access all of its benefits, et cetera. But we know that communities are going to have particular areas of interest and concern, et cetera. And so we're really being thoughtful in how we reach out and engage our communities, right? Showing up at the community center or the church or wherever makes sense for that particular community, engaging the right people so that there's a real live OPPD person there explaining the benefits and answering all types of questions. So we'll be taking both that community approach and then also engaging customers in a variety of ways from, not only direct mail, but websites, web presence, social media, et cetera. So there's many different ways to get information about the benefits of these meters to those pilot participants. All right, next slide, please. So just to walk you through an example, get through this crisply, of what a sample residential customer meter install journey would look like. We'll call it for a pilot participant. Let's say this pilot participant will have a meter in October, right? That's, maybe we'll just use that for this example. Well, beginning here in the spring, what they may notice is that there are new attachments being installed on poles near their home. Those are those kind of fan area network kind of infrastructure that's being installed. Now, they can always go to OPPD.com to see what projects are going on in their neighborhood, or get their questions answered from someone in our contact center, should they have them.
So Kate, the poles will be separate from streetlights or any other type of structure, right?
The pole, it's an attachment to our existing.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yep, to our existing infrastructure, yep. And then, through the spring and into June, we'll continue to hear our AMI updates at our board meetings, et cetera. And then really about 90 days before, so in this case, let's call it July, our customer is going to start seeing or hearing information about a pilot in their area through a variety of channels you can see in our icons below. And they'll see that they're going to be invited to a one or more community meetings so that they can learn more, should they have questions. And then about 2 months before, let's say they've attended their community meeting, they're going to get formal communication from OPPD advising of their actual meter install date. So one more touch point there, and that will link them to all different types of sources of information online, et cetera, to learn about the meter. 30 days before, then they'll receive a follow-up with even more FAQs, and they'll get kind of what I'll call that Nebraska Furniture Mart window of, hey, we think we'll be here within these 2 or so hours, let's call it, to install your meter. That meter install takes no more than 10 minutes. And yes, there might be a brief momentary outage, but they might have to reset the box. It really is pretty seamless. And this is also about the time that we will be talking simultaneously to all customers about that expanded customer platform. So they might start hearing some of their neighbors saying, hey, I got this new My Account thing. They might be hearing about that, but also understand that they're going to have expanded data available to them. And then 2 weeks before, they'll get one more kind of reminder of that installation window. Install date, they'll get a reminder, and they'll also see, crews in their neighborhood with signage in their area. Hey, there's some OPPD crews here. And a courteous field employee will come to their door, let them know what's happening, how long it should take, if they have any calls or concerns. And then when they're complete, they'll have a door hanger that says, hey, your work has been completed. Thank you so much. Here are places for you to go for information. Additionally, those who are helping with installation will be well-versed and trained on all the different types of questions that they might receive. And then a month or so, we'll say, because they've opted into all of the ways to receive information, they're going to get multiple updates and check-ins about, hey, how's your meter working? Did you know that you could access information here? Did you take a look at these other types of benefits? So that's what it might look like for an average residential customer. Next slide. So Matt's going to talk to you about what these features actually look like.
Yeah, we thought it'd be helpful for you to see a couple of the screens. Now, these are all taken out of a demo environment. We talked earlier about all the testing. These are some screenshots. So the numbers might be slightly off, but the overall experience is very, very close. So left-hand corner, what you're seeing there is just kind of the screen that you would go when you log in, right? It tells you about your bill, it tells you about your status, gives you other key information. On the right-hand side is a nice addition that we have here. This is highlighting some self-service around a product and service. This one happened to be level payment plan. If you're not familiar with level payment plan, that's really helpful for those customers who really want to budget from month to month. We can look over their past 12 months worth of usage. We can give them a flat rate that they can utilize month over month. This you can see here is $96. That would be their estimated level payment across the next 12 months, and then they can sign up for it. So a really nice addition to be able to self-serve. We know more and more customers want to be able to self-serve. So that's a nice highlight. Next slide. Now let's get into some of the data. Really enjoy the data. So All right, so what this is looking at here is the energy consumption by kilowatt hour across the month. Now, as you see, there's toggles there. We can look at 15-minute, hourly, daily, and monthly. And then you see the trending line there that's added is for weather. So again, trying to help customers understand, hey, my energy usage was really high. What's going on that day? And a lot of the challenges sometimes is trying to understand and remember, was it a hot day? Was it a rainy day? Was it overcast? So it's really nice to have that overlaid data. So again, a nice data function that customers, again, can go on, understand their energy usage. Okay, next slide. Now getting into outage map. Again, really nice features. Now I'm going to try to orientate you around this. So this, you're seeing the centralized map there. It's very much like you would see a Google or an Apple map. It's very dynamic. So we're looking at it right now, completely zoomed out, though you can zoom all the way down to a street level. What you're seeing on the left-hand side with the map legend is trying to correlate outages and trying to give customers information how large your outage is. Now, the piece that's underneath here that's really important is a safety component for our customers. We don't want to identify a singular house being out. So as you zoom in on this dynamic map, the outage bubble will not reside over a house. It will reside in a street in a common area. Trying to give customers some privacy there and understanding that we don't want to highlight a singular address being out. On the right-hand side of the screen, you see some key pieces of information that customers are really out after. We see that show up in our syndicated studies. They want to know, when did it happen? How many people are out? Do you know what happened? When am I going to be back on? And if you can give me an outage status, now think of outage status as like, did we receive your outage? Is there a crew in the area working? Has it been resolved? That kind of level of detail will show up there. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Oh,
Quick clarification on the outage map broadly that's publicly accessible. You won't be able to see individual information about any particular customer or small group of customers. But on my OPPD, would a customer be able to check their own status to determine if you were at work, for example, and you wanted to find out, is my service back on at home?
yeah, great question. This map will be kind of nested within my OPPD. So when you go in, you'll see information about your own residence. So your outage. Now, this can be looked at either through that login, right, where you'll see more detailed information, or as Kate talked about, more globally to understand from our, say, our network partners or our media partners who want to look and get that information.
Yeah, but the customer would have the ability to see their own information separately from the public.
That's correct.
Provided map. Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, let's talk about streetlight outages really quickly. So again, you see the toggle actually in the top left-hand corner there between outage summary, and now we're on the streetlight outage side. So what you can do here is it's again a very dynamic map, and it's also tied to GPS. So if you need to, you can zoom in and see, yes, I'm actually near this streetlight that's actually out. You can report it on the left-hand side of the screen here, or if it is already reported, you'll see details on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, you're not seeing that in this example, but you would be able to see, again, some key pieces of information around that outage.
So that example there, would those be streetlights that are out, or would that be all the streetlights in the area?
They are streetlights in the area and streetlights that are on. So actually the bubble that's kind of halfway cut off on the bottom of the screen.
Red or the orange, okay.
Yeah, so that would indicate, again, an outage, a streetlight outage. The other thing I wanted to highlight here, and I think it's really important, is in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you see the English toggle there. That will flip between English and Spanish. Now, every screen I've shown you so far will be translated into Spanish. So for those customers who speak Spanish, want to engage with us in that language, we will have the ability. So that's really a key piece of information there. Okay, next slide. Okay, now moving on to 2025, I'll turn it back over to Kate.
Yeah, Matt, feel free to kind of add anything I may have missed. So we really think about this in terms of seasonally what's happening across 2025. In the winter here, we're, as you're kind of hearing, developing a lot of these materials and testing them, making sure that we're understanding, hey, what's going to resonate most with customers? What level of detail do they need? How do we make sure that we're reaching them in the way that we need to reach them? What are our outreach plans in detail look like? And then in spring, those will continue to get refined. We'll engage our employees, make sure that they are really ambassadors and well educated about what's happening in case their neighbors ask them, any questions about it. And we'll continue to refine and customer test. And then in summer, late summer, fall, that's when we really think that, some of that initial stakeholder outreach will begin. I believe early October is kind of when we're thinking that first pilot area would go live. So backing up about 90 days from there will put us into the summer, we'll say, and obviously subject to availability of areas and those kinds of things. And then launching my OPPD, the outage map, we're thinking here in late fall. And then deploying our meters pilots in early October and with some of these touch points here. So that's really what 2025 looks like. We know that we're planning for a much more robust 2026 deployment, but what we're excited is that this gives us a chance to understand what will work, what won't, and how do we scale our efforts when we start, we're doing 10,000 pilot customers yet this year, but we know that piece is going to have to rapidly increase. That might be something closer to what we're doing every month or every couple of weeks when we deploy this. So it's not lost on us that not only are we rolling this out, we're learning and iterating and understanding how to scale these efforts for 2026 and beyond. And Lee, that's really what we have. What questions would you have?
Are we kind of on the cutting edge, or are we copying another utilities program, or did you have a consultant put this together? How did we arrive at this? This is a huge deal, obviously, and I'm sure there's a number of different options. I presume you could consider.
Well, I think the answer is yes across kind of all of those questions. So first, we want to make sure that we're leveraging. Hey, we know that there are partners and there are utilities and public utilities who've done this before, and so we've done some pretty extensive benchmarking to understand what are our other utility partners doing, and we've got some good relationships that we can understand that. So we've been able to leverage a lot of some of those best practices. Additionally, we do have a partner at OPPD, and so we are a consultant partner, and we were able to just say, hey, help us just understand, what does best practice look like? What are some of these call outs that we really need to think about? What complexities are there from an OPPD specific perspective? And so they were able to really consult and give us just some of that feedback. However, what we're really proud of is that we've got amazing talent on our team. And so our team, the team who is the project team who's putting this together and doing all the deep analysis, those are OPPD folks. So we're trying to use the best of both. Let's make sure that we're looking outside of ourselves, looking at our peers, seeing what best practices are. And also, no one knows OPPD better than us. So let's make sure that we use our internal talent to put that together. So I hope that's helpful.
As we go forward, if you see, wow, we should have done something differently here, or there's a new concept that comes up, so wow, we wish we could add this on. Will we have the flexibility to be able to add or change part of the program?
Yes, absolutely. So maybe an example to bring it home for you. On the previous slide, we talked about kind of a journey in terms of communications that we would have with our customers. While benchmarking other utilities, we found that some utilities who maybe communicated more or less had a dip in customer satisfaction. So we tried to pick a medium sweet spot. Now, we'll deploy meters and then we'll have a break of, let's say, around 6 months, where we'll do a review in terms of customer satisfaction drivers or community drivers and messaging that resonated. We'll be looking at call center data and other type of data like that to indicate, do we need to change messaging or change approach?
Great, thanks.
Director Kavanaugh, part of an answer to your question is the word leapfrog comes to mind. That we're not the first ones in the nation by any stretch of the imagination installing AMI. In fact, we were behind. But what we're doing here is taking advantage of the collaborative nature of the utility industry and learning from lessons that other utilities have learned, and doing a leapfrog, really getting a new technology, what my colleagues have referred to as AMI 2.0, right? We're going straight into the more modern technology we have. So we are really getting in the latest technology. It's fantastic. One other thing that I wanted to share here, you talk about stakeholder engagement. very clearly, this is why it's a customer and public engagement subcommittee topic. There's a very important aspect of employee engagement. I've had the privilege of sitting down with our team members and they're doing this testing that Matt mentioned earlier. Really exciting to see the smiles of people saying, I finally have this new technology where I get the tools to do my job well. Just tomorrow, I'm scheduled to go out and sit down with another group of employees at our operations center where they're going to be testing a lot of these new technologies. So there's a really valuable element of employee engagement too, where it's not just the customer is going to experience the OPPD in a better way, but our own employees will be able to do their work in a much easier, better, faster way.
Javier, maybe the one additional comment I'd add to support what Matt and Kate shared is it's really difficult, nor do we have the time in this setting we show a high level flyover of the plan. What that belies is the incredible complexity of this plan, rivaling the technology itself. So when you think about by pilot area, we have information and data that suggests whether customers respond or react better to print media or email or social media. We've got that sort of data. So beneath all of these will be a strategy by contact channel. It'll be feedback loops to understand what's resonating and what's not resonating, changes over time, and all of those layered together to make sure that we create excitement with customers for that new technology. So I just wanted to speak a bit. Matt alluded to it, as did Kate, the tremendous complexity underlying this. And I'm really proud of the way the team engaged. I would also add that I'm proud of the financial judiciousness with which they engaged the partner. Partners of that nature, as you can imagine, would want to do everything for you. And we were very selective in a couple of pieces of functionality or knowledge that could augment our plan, combined with what we learned from other utilities and the in-house skills we have. And I think that was a very prudent use of resources to make sure we end up with a good outcome. And I wanted to share that as well.
Quick question. So it looks like the summer is really when the big push of communication will happen. And obviously that will be key target audience will be those customers who are going to have direct experience the new technology, right? But also I assume there's a broader communication about, here we go, to all customers so that they've got at least eyes on it. Do we, and if I missed this in a previous presentation, I'm sorry, but do we know like what the future phases will look like and have them mapped out in a way where if a customer raises their hand and says, okay, it's not me this fall, but am I next year? Am I the year after? Is it mapped out in such a way where they could get that information?
It will, yes, I'm looking at you here, and I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit with our meter deployment plan.
Yeah, so we're working on kind of like the full deployment, which would start kind of mid next year, kind of at the earliest. So that's not completely finalized yet, but we have some ideas of what that will look like. Again, I think we want to take the opportunity to kind of use our channels and our processes to communicate the information in the right time.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that yet we could commit to saying, hey, we know you're going to be exactly in May of 27. Like, it's not to that granular level, but we have kind of an idea what that rollout will look like.
Okay, thank you.
So after the initial rollout, will it be a gradual process then to get everyone online, or it won't be all at one time then?
Right, it'll be,
We have over 400,000 meters that we have to be, so it has to be gradual, slowly. It'll take a couple of years.
Matt, Kate, thank you.
thank you.
Moving on to our legislative and regulatory update.
Thank you, Director Howard. I will turn this right over to Mr. Seth Boyles to walk us through the update this month.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm gonna put my timer on to make sure I don't go over time. Obvious microphone, and you never know what can happen. So, here's the agenda. We're gonna go over the state legislative issues that we have, and then finish up with some, a short federal update. Just there's a lot going on both sides of everything, so we want to make sure and get you guys up to date on everything. Here's our normal timeline that we always show you guys, 715 bills introduced. We're tracking probably 150 of those. It's a lot. We're monitoring most of those just to make sure they're not gonna add us in later to something that we've been doing, but you know, there's just a lot going on. And then the rest of the deadlines are, we've kind of gone over these things there. We're pretty getting close to, right in the middle of all the hearings going on. It's gone pretty fast and furious. It's day 27 already, which a lot of times these sessions drag on a lot. It seems like 27 minutes underwater, but this has gone by quick. So it's going fast and furious. Next slide, please. So here's the ones that we're supporting. LB 117 is about exempting the excise tax on residential electricity, natural gas, propane, sewer as well. It's a big price tag because they added everything else in there. We not sure this can go because we're still in that big hole in the budget. This makes that hole bigger, but we're still advocating for it. We sent a letter in on LB 163 and creating the Office of Climate Action. LB 271, this is a bill that says it's a new penalty on the offense of interfering with railroad infrastructure. If somebody does it, it's just gonna add another charge to it to make sure that we're gonna try to deter as much as we can because we've had some instances there. LB 290, this is a Senator McKinney bill. We're doing this on the economic development side on helping on those kind of things. We also sent a letter in there. LB 396, it's just filing the PRB, our budgets. We file it with them, they put it on a shelf, they don't look at it. Even the PRB said it's a waste of time for everybody. So we're getting rid of that, kind of outdated on those kind of things. So these are some of the easier ones that we've been looking at so far. Next slide, please. LB 413 is the one on rates, on how we can do rates on things. The hearing was on the 5th. We did not testify. We're helping out with NPPD on this. Where we are right now is we're not sure yet. We'll see how that's going to go. There was some concern with the language of you can set rates on load size, those other kind of things. We're going to work through all that stuff and see what we can come up with to help. We do think we can find something on there to get that up and moving, but we're reviewing that as we're going on and figuring out where that's going to go. LB 489, this is a bill that we asked Senator Brandt to come on about investor-owned or private entity transmission lines coming through the state. This stemmed from an incident last year where Black Hills Energy had a line that went through the northwest corner of the state. Nobody knew it was there. It was all of a sudden, it was just getting ready to go up. They went in front of the Power Review Board and the Public Service Commission to get authority to do it. And we all found out neither of those have authority over any of it. So this bill was brought about that to do that. The industry's all working together. We're trying to get the language where it needed to be. We work with our subject matter experts, Ad's team, Bruckner's team, everybody to see if we can get that where it needs to be. We're not in the area yet, but we're working on that amendment. Again, on a lot of these things too, this is the first year. They may bleed in over the next year as a holdover bill. We think we can come to an agreement on that, hopefully, and get that done as well. LB 546, that's our bill on NEMA changes for ice jams on specific multi-jurisdictional issues when it comes to NEMA, just getting that process jump-started a little bit faster. We've run into some opposition from NEMA on that. So we requested a late hearing to give us more time to try to negotiate and talk. This bill will absolutely probably go into the next session as well, because we want to make sure and show NEMA and others and especially Senator Roundtree what we're talking about on these with GridX and those kind of things, making sure that they understand that there are certain problems, there are certain issues that come up that don't fit into that box normally on going through the counties on damages and all that kind of stuff. Some of these things we just want to jumpstart a little bit quicker. So next slide, please. So I'm going to start with LB 43 because we're changing that to support, but we had filed the slides with you guys before. So LB 43 is about changing provisions about that 10-mile ban of no foreign components around Offutt Air Force Base with the missile silos. There was some language that was in there that we didn't like, that we were able to negotiate in an amendment to get that out of there so that everyone's okay now. It's still not affecting that whole ban and that kind of stuff, but it's making sure that the Power Review Board and the utilities are all on the same side of these things, making sure that there's not gonna be any foreign components around those military installations. And for us especially, we have to comply with our SIP standards, which we do all the time. They're all good with that. So that was a good exercise there. That's already on final reading too, by the way. Some things have gone by very quickly. We got the amendment finished for select file and was in and out, and some of these are working pretty quick. LB 129, this is like we talked about before, prohibiting bans on certain energy issues. Last year we did one that jurisdictions can't ban natural gas for whatever reason. So this one is preemptive to make sure that we can't ban ethanol at the gas pumps in Nebraska. We had some other language that we had an issue with, all the utilities had an issue with. We're able to get that stuff out on like electric vehicles. The language looked like it was saying we can't do demand charges, that kind of thing. So we got all of that out, got us exempted out of it. So we're still opposed to it to make sure that they don't try to add this stuff back in. That's where we're gonna be there. LB 175, this is about a landowner by our rail lines wanting a crossing. We'll figure that one out as well. LB 311, this is a charter communications bill. It looked like they were trying to get unlimited access to our easements and making sure they're not putting barriers up to entry into certain things. Sometimes those barriers can be master agreements or pole attachment rates. We opposed this to make sure we were going to be okay. We talked to Senator DeBoer about it. She agrees with our concerns, so we're all going to get together and hash this out at some point. We'll see where that's going to go, but as of right now, we're still going to oppose that bill, and she understands that, and she's good with that, and we testified in support of that. Next slide, please. I'll lump together the next two together, the energy storage bills. LB 503 first, that hearing is on Wednesday. We're gonna testify in opposition to that. I don't know what's gonna be our testifier on that. And then 349, this one hasn't been noticed yet, but it should be on March 6th. Our issue is that these are about those merchant batteries coming in, large batteries, and how it's not working for everything else there. LB 571, this is the cost of living adjustment for the retirees. We think this is either going to be on February 28th or March something. We're not sure when that's going to be. Everyone thought it was going to be this Friday, but they didn't get the notice in on time, and we'll see where that one's going to go. The chairman and the bill sponsor even knew that they thought it was going to be on the 21st, but we didn't get it there. Everyone has known that we're opposing these bills except for Senator Boslin. We've tried to contact her a couple times and we have not been able to get that yet. We're going to take care of that this week for sure. But I think she's heard that we're going to come in opposed. And she's understand we put in several notes to get her out of the rotunda, and just hasn't happened yet. So
Seth, on 503, is the entire bill specific to energy storage, or would it apply to other resources, non-storage? And would we have a different position if storage was not included?
So it has the energy storage provisions that we don't like, and it has also the American Energy County designations on the other side. But we don't have any problems with that. Part of it, I think there's some tweaks that need to be done, but we will more than likely keep our opposition throughout the process in case they try to add in the energy storage later on, just to make sure that we have that. Because then if we move it off of oppose and they add that back on, it's hard to jump to the other side again. So we just won't try to, we won't oppose it as when it's on the floor and that kind of stuff if it gets there. But that's our strategy and what we're going to do on there. We'll keep the opposition, but we want to make sure that the energy storage stuff doesn't get included back in on the floor.
Great, thanks.
These are the ones we're really looking at too. These are of high interest. Sales tax exemptions. This gets us on a couple of provisions that we would have to do. The Pacific conflict changes on 193, 644, and 660 all have to do with some kind of Chinese components on things. The main one we're really looking at 660 is the purchase of drones. This wants to limit who can buy drones and all that kind of issues, and public power, political subdivisions of the state are included. We don't have any Chinese drones. So we think it's going to be very difficult to why are you limiting us when we're not the ones that you're really looking at stopping from doing these kind of things? So I've talked to the bill sponsor on that one. We may look if we can get an out on the SIP standards like we normally do, because if we're, we use them for our line inspections, we use them to inspect our boilers. When there's extreme weather and there's tornadoes or whatever hit, we can see what the damage is that way. We just want to make sure that we are not kind of caught up in the process on this. We'll see where that's going to go. The crypto mining bill is big. It's messy. We're staying out of it. We're monitoring it pretty well. There were some provisions in there about utilities that we were able to get changed, which made it palatable to us, but that bill's got a lot of problems and it's going to be coming up left and right, and we'll see how that's going to go. It's pitting a couple of Republican senators against each other, and we're going to stay out of that fray. And then the building codes, we always monitor those to see where those are going to go. Realtors, home builders have an issue with the building codes and how all that's going to go. And like I said, we have a bunch of other ones we're looking at. Governor's budget, all that other fun stuff too. It's a lot. So I think that in a nutshell is our state stuff. Now on the federal side, the executive orders. There's been a bunch. As you guys all know, some have been offered, some have been rescinded. Courts have come in and struck them down. Not sure if they've been struck down. Whole bunch of things going on here. Everyone's trying to figure out, get their hands around it. We're reviewing everything that way. Our federal stakeholders, APPA, LPPC, NEI, American Clean Power, we're all kind of trying to figure out what these things are looking like. It's just, and now especially on the probationary employees, a lot of the agencies, a lot of those have been let go and they're scrambling to hire them back already. NNSA, which is on the nuclear security, and DOE, they let a bunch of those individuals go. They've already hired them back. We're figuring out where all that stuff's going as well. So we're keeping an eye on all these things, but either way you look at all these things, it's going to delay whatever is going on in the federal government, because this is a little bit of, this disruption it's evident across the board. So we're keeping an eye on it. Next slide.
Sorry, Seth, before you go on, one in particular, the One Red.
Which one?
The One Red, the NDEE's program, excess of, I don't know how much is. Do we have any sense for whether or not that's on hold, still going, dead?
I'm not sure. That's the $307 million one. Yeah, we have not heard yet. We'll put an inquiry in to see. But on 1-2, we read a report too. So like the NEVI funds for the electric vehicle charging, apparently the state has paused that for right now until it gets, the new guidance comes out. So, well, I'll find out about the One Red.
Since we paused here, there was some interest also in your assessment, to the extent that you have one knowledge on federal funding for LIHEAP, for example. Right, that our energy assistance program relies heavily on federal funding, not just energy assistance programs, but a lot of our programs rely heavily on federal funding that comes through LIHEAP that helps our most vulnerable customers. Any updates on that?
Yeah, LIHEAP is always one of those budget issues that comes up every year, because whatever the administration is on it, they usually try to, they give it a haircut in their budget. And then Congress always restores it, not fully, but as fully as they can. And every year we go in and we go up to the Hill. Britton Gable and I are going up on March 4th and 5th to advocate for increased funding for LIHEAP to make sure that we're keeping it where it is. Nebraska's kind of in a different situation too, so we're so far so good. We haven't heard any issues with LIHEAP funding coming into the state. Britton has talked to the LIHEAP program here and at NDEE, and everything so far is we're still receiving our money and everything's going forward. And the state's supposed to let him know if anything happens that way. But we always advocate for that. We sign the NUOC letter every year saying, hey, we need full funding of LIHEAP. Then we go up there and we actually put our shoes on the pavement. We make sure we tell our entire delegation that LIHEAP funding is important for all of us. So we hit this every single year. All right, next slide, please. All right, so tax exempt financing and reconciliation. Tax exempt financing is always on the pay for list. Has been for a while. Public Power, school district, everyone puts a pretty good full court press on making sure that's not going to happen. But as you can see, it can be a big price tag for what they're looking at doing. There's a border adjustment tax, can be a big thing for us too. You know, it's usually on our steel, wiring, transformers, all that stuff kind of adds up and it just kind of stacks where we're going. So we're monitoring all that stuff. The IRA and IIJA, they're all looking at taking haircuts on that. So far, it seems like it should be a scalpel, but that can turn into a sledgehammer pretty quick. And then the other thing on there is tariffs. So we get a lot of our poles and everything else, all other equipment coming from Mexico and Canada. So all of these things are ways to try to pay for what the administration and Congress wants to do in reconciliation on and extending the 2017 tax that should be expiring at the end of this year. They want to make it permanent. It's a big, hefty price tag though. $1.5 trillion. And they need to add up everything they can to make sure they can do that. And these are the issues that public power always has every single year. So we're always up there fighting it. We think we can beat those down, but we're not going to sit back and rest on our laurels unless on other people doing this for us. We're going to be up there also doing the same thing. So when Britt and I are up there talking about LIHEAP, I'm also going to hit all of these issues too to make sure that, look, all these aren't bad things for us. Tax exempt financing is paramount to what we do. IRA, IIJA, there's issue that's going out, there's money that's going out. You can't rescind some of that money because of the impact of that and other issues. Just making sure that our delegation is out there helping us on this. And the tax exempt financing piece, Representative Bacon sent a letter in to the Treasurer Breezy to talk about this, how important it is for us. He's already told the Ways and Means Committee not to touch tax exempt financing. And a lot of that's been because of all of our advocacy across the utilities in the state, talking to him and others to make sure that they understand the importance of what this is, especially for the 100% public power state. So we've been hitting the ground pretty hard on these things and we're not going to let up. It's a yearly thing for us all the time because they always see things to pay for, so part of the budgetary process. And I think that is my last slide. So if there's any questions.
Any questions for Seth?
Just a little busy.
Just a little.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Bethany. A couple minutes early. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Seth.
Congrats.
All right. Thank you, Director Moody.
You bet. The Finance Committee met on February 7th. You see the agenda up in front of you. So a few things to note here. We've talked about annual committee charter review earlier, so nothing to note there. The board work plan, pretty standard operation for us there. What I will mention is item number 3, the preliminary 2024 financial results. Emphasizing preliminary. The committee got just kind of a quick glance at where things are shaking out for 2024, but we as a board will get a full review of those once final in March. So teeing that up for discussion in March, nothing to note necessarily there, but it was helpful for the committee to get kind of that first glance at it as we go forward. That's it for the chair's report. The next item on the agenda, as we know, our CFO is leaving the organization. His last day will be February 28th. I think I speak for all of us when I say, Jeff, you've done an amazing job for the organization, and you'll probably be missed. We did want to give you an opportunity, if you might, to just talk a little bit about, to give us some reflections from the CFO's chair as you see it.
Thank you. Yeah, difficult decision for me and my family. It's been fantastic being here in terms of the friendships, the work that's been done at OPPD. I can't underscore that enough. Moving back to the state of Washington, which is my home state, to be closer to family. But I did want to give a few reflections in terms of my time here and thank everyone for that. When I was asked about this, I was reflecting, back on some of my first days and the
fact that I was out at the Stain Bear Lake and Turtle Creek facilities where they were dirt and earth was being moved around with large pieces of equipment. And it was pretty amazing to reflect on the fact that those are all but now generating. And I think about the level of change and progress that's been going on in the utility since I've been here and been able to be a part of that. It's been fantastic. And I'll highlight, being in the utility space for the past 25 years, you don't see the level of change that's going on like you have here at OPPD, and that's something to be proud of and grateful for. And when I talk about that, I'll highlight that really kind of permeates into a lot of what my role was as I think about my responsibilities to talk about the financial health of the organization out to communities, rating agencies, the retirement committee in Lincoln, all the different times we get an opportunity to talk about that. And I was reflecting on the fact that we have had a series of different trips out to New York. Director Spurgeon was on 2 of those, and really proud moments from my perspective. We'll highlight 2 years ago, being out there talking to them about the fact that we just had the near-term generation resolution passed, and we're in the progress of doubling the size of our generation fleet. And it was interesting as part of that conversation, especially with one of the agencies, really seeing them ask a lot of questions, but it wasn't necessarily about the plan. It was more like all the details that went into our plan, the changing and planning reserve margins, really coming to better understand, because they knew they're going to be getting different requests in the future. We were a first mover from that perspective, but it just makes you proud to think about what you've learned and being able to convey that and take that out to conversations that oftentimes can be difficult or uncomfortable. It was exciting to be a part of that. And then when I reflect forward, the next year we came out and we said, hey, 88% of that's been done, and it's actually been done early. So that was just such an exciting part to be a part of. Again, those can be difficult discussions. Oftentimes you're walking in saying why things have been delayed or why there's a problem. But this was to say, no, we've got 88% of it done, and we're ahead of schedule. That's pretty cool. And again, I think when we think about that level of change and progress, that goes for the utility and all the people that deliver that, the board all the way down to everyone who's a part of that. One other piece I was reflecting on was, this is my last annual report, right? There's a series of the accounting folks, finance folks, and myself that really revere the annual report, spend a lot of time with it. And I was thinking about, well, let's assess the financial health of the organization. So when you think about rates, reserves, obligations, what have we gotten done over the past 3 years? I was looking at the rates. Rates have improved from a competitiveness perspective. We were 18% 2021. Now we're almost 31% below the national average. So that's something for the group to be proud of. As we think about financial reserves, how are we setting up the financial health of the organization? I look at the RSA, 50 million back in 21, now it's 76 million. Now we use 13 million of that, but that's what that's for, to be able to utilize that for your financial health. It's almost a 52% increase in the rate stabilization account. This is probably even more significant are the obligations that we have out there. When we think about the decommissioning of Fort Calhoun, having that no longer being pulled from rates, that's the trust is fully funded, is a great piece for our customers. And that's something that should be noted in terms of, you don't just pull a plan of decommissioning, offline. This is innovative stuff, and the team did a phenomenal job getting us to that point. So hats off to everyone that's been a part of delivering that. And then as I think through on the pension side, making sure that we've got our ability to fund the retirement for the people that walked before us. Again, we've put in, as I go back to 21, $145 million of additional funds above the annual retirement contribution. So I highlight these things as things that happened during the 3-year period. That groundwork has been laid for years. We've been able to reap that now, but again, we just highlight where we've come over the course of time, and it's one, exciting to be a part of that. I'm grateful for that, and again, I think we're set up well into the future based upon the work that's been done in the past. We just highlight just the people. That's going to be the toughest part, saying about people. Great, we've got great teams in terms of the quality of our professionals, but notably the friendships that we enjoy. And I think when I look back on 24, it was almost made up when you come up with 6 storms that we went through. I mean, it was almost like we had a Saturday morning call in for coffee and let's talk about storm updates. It was unreal. But as we think about serving our community, that speaks volumes right there in terms of what the organization does. I also note that the piece that came to mind to me too was the mutual aid response at 1500 and having people come through and do laundry for these crews that are from out of town, just to make sure that we could continue to respond to our customers, which is fantastic. I'll leave us with this. One piece that had come to mind when I was on a call last week with Kate Brown and her team was, you know, what do you take away from the 3 years that you've been here? What comments might you have? And I'd highlight, you know, there will be some difficult times in front of us. That said, again, as I highlight on level of progress and change is pretty phenomenal, but really the legacy that you're all leaving is unbelievable. When you think 5 and 10 years out, what's going to be in front of us in terms of what you've delivered, that's something to be really proud of and something to be exciting to be a part of. So thank you. I'm grateful for the ability to serve and be part of the organization. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Colleagues, sorry, I don't know if this was a Q&A opportunity, but I thought I'd just got any comments for Jeff?
Chairman Pratt.
Thank you.
I'll add in, thanks for all your work here. Best of luck to you in the future. And, you know, practically, thank you for the real strong position that you're leaving OPPD in. So thank you for everything.
If I have a chance to publicly acknowledge this, because I won't have a chance to do this in public, although we have many chances later on. I'm going to miss you. It was, I started joking, but I say this in all seriousness. We're going to upgrade of a CFO with you. You've done a phenomenal work at OPPD. You took the reins of the organization. I was a little nervous at first when I became a CEO. Am I going to be able to really let go of my CFO responsibilities? You made that transition really easy. I had no questions, no concerns about your capability of leading the financial aspect of OPPD. It was easy for me to let go and not think of myself as a CFO because I knew I had the right person on the job leading this organization. And I think we owe a lot of the success we've had to your steady hand, your ability to think forward, get us ready. All the work that we've done on risk management with the fuels, with the back office and middle office, things that you didn't quite mention up here, but it's so important. You've laid the ground for the organization to continue thriving financially. So just an opportunity to thank you publicly. I completely understand the reasons behind your decision to move and work. I'm going to miss you and your family here, but I take a little bit of hope that we will continue seeing each other because you will continue to remain in the public power industry, and we will get to see you in many events in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Well said. Okay, Director Corley Ross.
All right. Director Williams.
Great, thanks very much. The Systems Committee did meet on February 3rd. We talked about some path work. We mentioned earlier that the charter review was discussed in systems, went to governance, will be up for recommendation there. We talked briefly about some site visits. We have a new director on the board this year, so Director Hudson, we want to make sure we get him to visit all of the important and interesting things we can see in person. So we'll be scheduling opportunities for board members to visit some of those facilities. We'll make sure everybody has that update as that gets planned. We'll talk about the SD6 monitoring report here in a little while today. We also talked about the advanced metering infrastructure updates. There are 2 halves of the work. We heard an update about the customer and public engagement side of things earlier. The Systems Committee will continue to talk about the slightly more technical aspects of AMI moving forward. So we'll see probably public report outs on more technical things in the future, but we talked about that a little bit internally at the committee. And then the AMI update we had did reflect an update to the streetlight maintenance reporting system, which I've received a couple comments recently, and I'm very glad to hear about that update coming through. We talked about the increased work that OPPD staff and contractors have been doing to bring down the number of outstanding streetlight maintenance requests. And so kudos to everybody who's been doing that. I received a couple requests recently. One of them, I didn't even have a chance to respond to the email saying, hey, there's a streetlight out, before a second email came in that said, hey, thanks for getting that taken care of. I had to say, staff did that, kudos to them. But appreciate the update on how we're handling that now and the status looking forward.
If I may, Director Williams, just maybe a point of clarification for you for the customer owners. We have about 100,000 streetlights out there. And I think it's important to remind people that, those break down and we all are repairing them. We usually, on average, we have about 1,000 of them outs, 1% of outages that we're constantly repairing and addressing. Because of the work that we had last year of storm restoration, et cetera, we fell behind, right? So the 1,000 grew to about 2,000. So 2% of our streetlights were out. And that's probably the increase of dissatisfaction we got from customers saying, hey, there seems to be more streetlights out than usual. And our teams have done a phenomenal work, as you pointed out, in bringing that back down to a more normal level, and we will continue to work with that. But I think that's an important statistic to share with the public. We've caught up, and we will continue to do our work to stay on top of it.
Yeah, great, appreciate it. We talked about new generation, and we looked at the board work plan looking forward. We didn't have any specific updates now, but we anticipate additional discussions in systems about work the systems committee will do moving forward in future months. So with that, we do have some items that are on the agenda for today. First item today will be the SD6 monitoring report. Gina Lang will present that for us.
Good morning, Jean Langle, Vice President of Safety and Facilities. Arlo Christensen will be doing the report on this. He is our Director of Safety Training and Health. So Arlo.
Thank you. First, I'd like to start off with thanking the board for taking this subject serious and holding us accountable to achieving good safety results for the employees and the public. So appreciate that. If you could go to the next slide. SD6, this is the wording for SD6. So we'll be through continuous improvement and monitoring. OPPD shall be recognized as leaders in employee safety, ensure the safety of the public in relation to our operations. And two of those stats that we monitor throughout the year and report on is the DART rate, which is the target is 0.5 or below, and the PVIR rate. And anybody that doesn't, I know we have some new board members, DART, days away, restricted transfer. We generally see the days away cases in the restricted. It's not very likely that we see a transferred case. And then our PVIR rate is our preventable vehicle incidents. So that goal is 4.0 or less. So being recognized in the industry, it was pointed out last year that the dates were wrong, but they're actually correct, except on the first one. These are always done. We just submitted the numbers for 2024, so we never have the results back. So we usually just add in there what previous year is. So the safety award for the APPA, we was recognized at their top level, the diamond level last year for 2023. But I suspect that it got lost in transition since we don't have offices like EP and stuff anymore. So that's why it says image is coming soon. So I apologize for that. But we take this very serious as far as being leaders in employee safety and ensuring safety of the public. So OPPD has many individuals that are not just on safety committees throughout the industry. We're actually asked to be on those safety committees. So we represent organizations like the APPA, LPPC, Electricity, NATF. We have someone that's on the board of directors for the National Safety Council here in Nebraska. So we take this we are committed to this to make sure that we're one of the leaders in management. Next slide, please. So this is where we ended up for 2024. We had 20 DARTs, 10 of those were restricted cases and 10 of those were days away. We didn't get anywhere close to what our target was. The other thing this slide shows is top quartile that's defined by the APPA, so other public power associations, and that's 0.87. Our rate last year ended at 0.97, so nowhere near satisfied where we were with injuries. But if we go to the next slide, we'll kind of dive into a little bit of the details of are we still seeing improvements when it comes to injuries. So what this slide shows us, it shows us a few different things. It shows us the DART rate, the DART count, and then it goes into restricted and days away. And usually your days away cases they kind of show more on the line of surgeries and stuff where people can't come back to work on restricted duty. But you can see overall, even in some of our good years, including 2023, which we called the best year ever, we still had a combined total that was less than 2023. So 2020 was that was the year of COVID. So we do look at it, but it was probably unusual for that time. And if we did the same thing with the DART rate and went way back, it's really show a good line there. We used to, I would say, since I've gotten involved, most of our cases years ago ended up in a surgical procedure rather than physical therapy and being able to return to work. So next slide.
So, sorry, real quick on this one, because we do have a metric in the language for DART specifically. I wanted to highlight that we talked in the committee about the red line, the severity. And so while the number is up, the severity has continued to remain low. And so when we have explicit metrics and our outcome for the year is not aligned with the metric in the SD, we always want to understand what's going on there. And I think the highlight in the committee was that there are more incidents, but that the severity of the incidents has decreased. So as often as we say at the beginning of meetings, sprains, strains, and tears did lead to DART incidents that were less severe, even though the number is higher. So I don't know if there's any additional comments there. Or...
No, most of those injuries were maybe a couple days that were restricted or a couple days off and right back to work. I'd say the vast majority of the days away cases were from one incident where an individual fell from the bucket truck. But and usually you'll see that be a more severe case. Like I said, the DARTs are generally, they show a larger number if we have surgeries and stuff. So we try to focus on early intervention when we see things that are reported and try to get ahead of them, because I'd rather send someone to physical therapy, still call it a DART, and get them back to work without going through a surgical procedure. But this is kind of below the surface. So the way to impact the DART rate in those cases is you start focusing on those injuries that are kind of hurting us and try to minimize those too. And then sooner or later, you should see that rate come down too. So
yeah, so a proactive, preemptive attempt to help people prior to the more serious injuries.
Another question, I think that, I'm sorry, okay, another question was, we talked about all the severity of the storms and the things that we had. We had very few injuries during that time. One was a dog bite during the tornado when a fence was blown down, in there. And then another was, I think, stepping on a nail is the one I remember, that was in there. There were very few there. So our crews are doing an excellent job of watching out for each other during those times. And the leaders are doing a good job of making sure that we're bringing that point home. So that might be of interest to you too, because I know last year was an unusual year for us, hopefully.
We've used the DART theory for a long time, and obviously one serious injury can skew the overall results. Have you given any consideration to maybe just looking at total injuries and then also significant injuries as a more accurate measuring stick to see where we're at?
yeah, I think we'd like to, and I think Javier mentioned it last year at the committee meeting about a safety index where we're measuring not just those things, but our training, along with our near misses, good catches and all that, that gives a true identity of our safety culture instead of just a dart rate and a PVIR.
Because it's sometimes difficult to really draw any conclusions from that because of the outlying, one unfortunate incident that can cause that.
Well, it's like the cost of an injury. We always say, everybody just sees the tip of the iceberg sticking out, but it grows really big in the bottom. That's kind of what the dart rate is. We're just looking at the tip of the iceberg, and you'll probably hear more in the
Well,
future.
actually, if I could just bring that maybe here, you actually teed up something that we wanted to bring up. One of the things on the board work plan that we haven't assigned yet was something on psychological safety. Good catches, near misses, all of those types of things are all part of that, right? And if the board desires, we could start work on that and also come back with a more holistic index that shows more than just dart rate and the PVIR. It would show holistically how we're doing as a safety culture to give you even more information in that. So if that is something that the board desires, that is certainly something that we can come back and do.
That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, we get the last slide after the recommendations, and then we can make sure we hit it then and see if there is projected work for this committee moving forward.
Any other questions on this slide? Next slide. So this one, we've continually, I think it's 9 years now that we've been well under the 4.0 rate for the PVIR. We drive between 5 million, 6 million miles a year. So, and we don't have a lot of interaction with incidents with customers. So generally speaking, most of those incidents are probably customers at fault rather than ours. It's the minor stuff, hitting garage doors, ballards and things like that. So our folks do a great job when they're out on the road, making sure that they protect themselves and the public, because in the utility industry, this is one of the most dangerous things that you do on a daily basis. So.
And you mentioned that was the top decile. Is that
Yeah,
for-
so, well, I didn't, but thank you
Okay.
for reminding me. So the 4.0 is top decile. So it's, both of these are really aggressive goals. Like I said, in the APPA, 0.87 is top quartile for the current rate. But we're aggressive on it, and we want to get down there to, well, I'd like 0, to be honest with
For
you.
clarification, that's injuries per 4 million miles? Is that how that's determined?
It's divided by, I think it's per 100 employees, the way the formula works. So it's, but as far as the miles drive, you add that into the formula when you're figuring out what your rate is.
Okay.
But once again, both of these numbers are quartile and top decile that we're trying to achieve too. So next slide. So we didn't achieve our goal, obviously, on the dart rate. We did on the PVIR. We are trying to have a heavy focus on, minimizing injuries, but we are bringing down the severity. We're having a focus right now of working towards preventing those sprains, strains, and tears. We currently have an individual, a physical therapist that we're working with going throughout the district that's focusing on that and using good ergonomics out in the field. So safety recommends to the board that you find OPPD is taking reasonable and appropriate measures to comply with board policy for SD6. First slide.
And any directors have any thoughts, comments about this? Again, we talked about it in committee.
I have a question on the PVIR slide. So high was in 2013. So what made this big turnaround in 10 years?
We had a heavy focus on that, especially with like doing our 360 walkarounds, making sure that we was doing hazard recognition training for driving. We used to send people through the Smith driving school. We actually had a worse record when we was doing that than when we just started focusing on it in safety meetings and and safety bulletins. So it's a continual process that we keep cycling through as far as reminding people to watch out when they're on the road.
And so for the recommendation, looking backward at last year, we did last year recommend sufficiently in compliance with the policy. This year, the language on the recommendation slide is slightly different based on the DART number relative to the metric. So this is taking reasonable and appropriate measures. That's a different recommendation. We've talked about this on other strategic directive monitoring reports in the past. I think we did talk about some forward-looking reasonable and appropriate measures to continue to improve those numbers. Appreciate highlighting that. Just wanted to be clear about that's what the recommendation is from the committee for this report this year. Great. And we do have one more slide.
So the comments I made, we can use over on this slide right now on that. So if the board desires us to start that, we could start that work and have it done by probably August. Possibly earlier than that, but by August. And this year we would still be using the DART rate and the PBIR since we started it. So it'd be in 2026, but we already do a lot of looking at the overall health. So it wouldn't take a lot for us to be able to get that done starting next year.
My goal, excuse me, so my goal would be to have something to you early so we can pilot it for a few months and you can.
I mean, these obviously, all of these goes through systems committee, so that there's no vote, there's no polling here, but it's a good opportunity to comment on what else is missing.
Well, it sounds like we'll anticipate that going off the board work plan and being a policy language update in the future.
Yeah, broadly, it still feels important. I tend, I'll defer to the systems committee to determine what the right timing is and balance it against all the other things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. We do have an action item. Looks like Scott. It says Troy. I see Scott though.
Yes, good morning. Scotty, I'm the Director of Engineering Services for Utility Operations. So I concentrate on the production side and I'm filling in for Mr. Vi today. So I'd like to cover this request for proposal 6179. It's for the design, fabrication, delivery, and installation of replacement exhaust stacks for Sarpy County Station Units 1 and 2. Those units are part of the combustion turbine fleet that we have right now. The current exhaust stacks for units 1 and 2 were replaced in 2000 and have a 20-year expected life expectancy. Aaron, could you please progress towards the picture? Thank you. So there are the two large structures in the foreground there for both units. They're approximately 60 foot tall. These exhaust stacks are required for unit operation and have required regular repairs over the last 10 years to maintain unit reliability, including 3 unplanned outages in 2024 and 1 in 2023 between the 2 units. So replacing these stacks will ensure reliable operation, resilient grid support, and continued accredited capacity for units 1 and 2 at Sarpy County. We only received 1 bid for this work under the sealed bid process from Shock Manufacturing. We have worked with Shock on multiple other jobs, including similar past exhaust stack replacement at Jones Street Station, which was in 2021. That single bid was not compliant with the technical requirements of the RFP due to the dates for the installation are outside of the time frame required. So based upon that non-technical compliance with the RFP, we're recommending that we reject the bid and move towards negotiation for a contract to replace the stacks. So the negotiation process will allow us to work on a schedule that works for both parties better, and we're confident we can work towards that. So pending questions, that's what I have.
You mentioned not complying with the timeline that was targeted. This would be a planned outage. Is there an estimated duration of outage?
Yeah, we did have the planned outage dates for 2025 because we'll have to shift. We will move, but they'll still be planned.
And so, yeah, so work in 2025 is the anticipated time.
Part in 2025, part in 2026. We've assessed the risk and short extension in 2026 is acceptable.
Anybody else comments?
Okay, thank you.
Great. And that is the last item on the Systems Committee agenda. Back to you, Director.
Great, thank you. Does any director have anything they want to move to a discussion item for Thursday? It's good to me. And then review of board work plan. Mr. Foch, did you have anything for this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We've had an opportunity to take with each of the new standing committees, we've had an opportunity to walk through each of these action items. There were things that emerged from the governance workshop in August. Through those committees, we've had an opportunity then to begin to establish dates and expectations for how the work plan would be executed over the course of the year. It's nice to see the colors in here, and it's actually going to instill a sense of, I think, real direction and execution with eyes on dates to finish, so that when we're sitting in the workshop in August, there's a real sense of completion for all of the work that the board has identified that it would like to accomplish above and beyond what it normally does through its committees. So I would just opt for that right now versus going through each individual line.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions on that at all? Great.
Kudos for capturing the SD6 update on the slide and diligent already. So very proactive there. Glad to be part of that.
All right, that's all we have for the agenda. Before we adjourn, we'll take comments from the public on items of district business. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are a part of the official public record. We'll take comments in the room first and then via WebEx. For in-person attendees, if you wish to make a comment, I will call you to the public comment podium one at a time. Please state your name, address, and any name of the organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we'll use the timer on the screen. Ms. Lane will signal when you have 30 seconds remaining, as well as when time is up. If you have written materials, please deliver them to Ms. Lane. Anybody in the room? Is there anybody online? Okay. For WebEx attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please send the meeting host a message using the chat feature or utilize the hand raise feature. Detailed instructions can be found on the OPPD website at the link shown on the screen. When I call on a member of the public to speak, please affirm that we can hear you before commencing with your comments. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we'll use the timer on the screen and signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com, and that will be received on your behalf. For all attendees, please direct your comments to me. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from polling the board as such vote is not on the agenda and prohibited by law. Skipped around a little bit.
No, you're fine. You're good. We have David Corbin online.
Okay. Mr. Corbin, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, please.
All right, David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, representing the Nebraska Sierra Club. I didn't get to be on the early part of the meeting, but I did go through your the bills that you support and oppose, and I was just surprised to see that you didn't take a stand on the bills like 264, which are taking money from the Nebraska Environmental Trust, from which you have received grants. So there's plenty of people who don't like that they're taking away funds and giving it without a competitive process to other entities. I just would encourage you, there's a couple of other bills that are taking money from the trust as well. So I would hope you would take a stand on it. Thanks.
Thank you. Aaron, anybody else?
No more comments.
Okay. Well, thanks for your comments, Mr. Corbin. If there aren't any further comments, the meeting is adjourned.